Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the NBA slate on DraftKings for Saturday, May the 25th. We got Game 6 between Milwaukee and Toronto, Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to take a look at this showdown slate for Saturday night. We're going to start off at the top of the player pool and work our way down. I'm going to talk about all the options that I like, all the guys that I think I'm going to be playing and that I'm going to have in my player pool. We won't really be talking about the guys like 1K and below just because they don't see the minutes. We're going to look at some different roster builds as well towards the end of the video after we get done looking through the player pool. Maybe we'll build out a couple lineups, maybe some lineups where we have an expensive captain, maybe some lineups where we have a cheaper captain. Just look at different builds, figure out which build makes the most sense for cash games, and maybe what's a route you want to go in tournaments. Just try and cover as much as I can in this video. Just before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. So starting off at the top with Kawhi, he is now more expensive than Giannis. He is $11,800 after coming off a very good Game 5, a Game 5 in which Giannis really struggled. Giannis is now $11,600. Kawhi more expensive though. But even though Kawhi's coming off a good game, I still think I would rather play Giannis. This game's going back to Toronto, so I do expect Kawhi to play very well. I don't imagine he's going to have a bad performance here. With a chance to close out the series to advance to the finals, Kawhi's going to be playing a ton of minutes. He's going to be chucking up shots. So he is a very good option. But with Giannis now cheaper and Giannis coming off a bad game, I hope that drives his ownership down a little bit. I know on last slate he was like 95% owned. Pretty much everybody played him. Maybe this slate his ownership will go down to like 80-85%. There's definitely an edge for those that don't play Giannis here. Because Giannis has remained the most consistent option in this series. Just game after game, he's giving you massive numbers. Can score, can rebound, can assist, can get defensive categories. Pretty much contributes in all categories, can get all stats. So I really like Giannis here. Coming off a bad game, like I said, I hope that drives his ownership down. I expect Giannis to play very well. He remains the option that I want to pay up for. So I'm going to include him in the start of our lineups, the start of our builds. I expect a lot of my lineups are going to have either Giannis or Kawhi at captain on this showdown slate because I think those are the two guys that just make the most sense overall to play as a captain. But let's go ahead and talk about some of these other guys. So Pascal Siakam at 9,200, I do like here. The only issue I have with him is his price now up to 9,200. He saw a $1,200 price jump. After having a very good game 5, I really did like him in that game. 36 minutes and 43 DraftKings points, was very productive with 14 and 13, 2 assists, 3 blocks, and a steal. I expect Siakam to continue to play well, but he is more expensive than Chris Middleton. He's more expensive than Kyle Lowry. So for that reason, I think playing a guy like Chris Middleton at 8,600 makes a lot of sense. Middleton did not shoot the ball very well last game. Just 6 points on 2 for 9 shooting, 0 for 2 from 3. But he contributed in the other categories, got 10 rebounds and 10 assists. If he would have scored 4 more points, he would have got you a triple-double and most likely would have had like 40-plus DK points. So Middleton, 8,600, now that he is cheaper than Siakam, I think he is the better play. So I really like Chris Middleton, 8,600. I'm not going to include him in the core, but if I'm building out some lineups and if I have like over 9,200, I know a lot of people are probably going to fill out their last spot with Siakam. Then I think playing a guy like Middleton over Siakam, leaving some salary on the table, definitely makes a lot of sense. Kyle Lowry at 8K is just sandwiched in between two guys I really like. I really like Middleton and I really like Malcolm Brogdon. So for that reason, Kyle Lowry is not going to be like a core play for me. I just expect to either go up to Middleton or go down to Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's a guy that I really like. Now that he is in the starting lineup, we saw him have a very productive Game 5, 43 DraftKings points in 34 minutes, 18, 11, and 6. He was very productive. Shot 47% from the field, took 17 shots, which is something we really like to see. The minutes were up as well. I expect Brogdon's going to continue to start, going to continue to play big minutes. So I really like him here at 7,200. He's going to do a lot of the ball handling when Giannis and Eric Bledsoe aren't on the floor. He has the potential to get you double-digit assists, could easily go for a triple-double. I would not be surprised if Brogdon got close to a triple-double. He almost had one last game if he would have just got a few more assists. So really like Malcolm Brogdon at 7,200. I think he's one of the more underpriced plays on this slate. He should definitely be more expensive than Kyle Lowry. Should be about the same price as Middleton now that he's back in the starting lineup and playing bigger minutes. But then going down to this mid-range, Marc Gasol is a guy that I do like going back to, even though he burned me a ton last slate. He really struggled last game. just 29 minutes, 13 DraftKings points. But for some reason, throughout the series, Marc Gasol has just been much better at home, and this game is going to be at home. His two best games in the series were Game 3 and Game 4 at home, where he had 55 and 41 DraftKings points. On the road in Milwaukee, for some reason, he's really struggled. Just 13 DK points last game in Milwaukee. In Game 2, he only had 10 DK points. Had a decent game, Game 1, 33 DK points in 40 minutes. But at home, that's where Gasol's had a lot of success. I expect that to continue, so I really like going back to him at 5,600. I still think he is a bit underpriced. Also think Brook Lopez is a bit underpriced at 5,200. For what it's worth, Gasol and Lopez I both think are better placed than Eric Bledsoe, and they're both cheaper as well. Lopez at 5,200 I think is a pretty good play. He's going to continue to give you 25 to 30 DraftKings points. Going to continue to play about 30 minutes a night. I think you get more upside out of Gasol, and I think I would rather roster Gasol just one-on-one, but Lopez remains a good play at 5,200. Fred VanVleet is a guy that I want to talk about at 4,800. I think he's going to be one of the more bigger keys to the slate, getting him right or getting him wrong. In my opinion, I think Fred VanVleet might be a guy that we can avoid. His last two games, he's been very productive with 26 and 29 DraftKings points, and he saw 37 minutes last game. He took a lot of the minutes that I thought Norman Powell was going to get. Like, I thought Norman Powell was going to take a lot of Danny Green's minutes, and that wasn't the case. Fred VanVleet wound up getting a lot of those minutes. He was very productive from the field, 7 for 9 from 3, 7 for 13 from the field. I imagine that's one of the reasons VanVleet was able to stay on the floor. Now that he's up to 4,800 and he's coming off two good games, I imagine he's going to get some popularity. People are going to roster Fred VanVleet. So for that reason, I think going to a guy like George Hill or even going back to Norman Powell makes a ton of sense. I still really like George Hill at 4K. George Hill just remains underpriced. He's continuing to give you consistent minutes, consistent DraftKings points, over 20 DK points in 4 straight games. He's played at least 25 minutes in 4 straight games. He's going to give you production. He's still really cheap. Really like George Hill as a value. I think if he's going to come in lower owned than VanVleet, he remains one of the best values on this slate. Norman Powell as well at 3,800 I really like, especially because he's 1,000 cheaper than VanVleet. He still saw 24 minutes last game. Just 14 DK points was not very productive, but I imagine if VanVleet's not knocking down a lot of those threes, a lot of those minutes are probably going to go towards Norman Powell. Like if Norman Powell comes off the bench and starts knocking down a bunch of shots, he's probably going to see more minutes than he saw in the last game. So I really like going back to Norman Powell at 3,800. I like playing him over VanVleet. I like playing George Hill over VanVleet. I think both guys are really good value plays. Nikola Mirotic at 3,400 is a guy that I've been rostering, but now that he's going back to the bench, he's pretty much unplayable in my opinion. He's just not going to see the minutes. He only saw 9 minutes last game. With Brogdon now starting, Mirotic is probably not an option we want to go to. Danny Green, same can be said for him. He's just not getting the minutes right now. Even though he continues to start, he's just not playing a lot of minutes. He's not very productive, even when he does get minutes. So I would say the cheap option that you want to consider is probably Norman Powell. He's the best, like, just straight-up punt play on this slate. Everyone else under Norman Powell is probably just going to be someone, or just going to be guys that I mark out. So that's how I'm going to be attacking the showdown slate when we look at the player pool. I think I pretty much talked about all the guys that I'm going to be playing. So let's go ahead and build out a couple lineups real quick before we end the video. So I do want to build out a lineup with Giannis as our captain. I think that's the route that I'm going to be taking the most on this slate. Let's see if we can build out a lineup with Giannis and Kawhi together. We're definitely going to need some value, so George Hill and Norman Powell I think are both good values. That leaves you 6,500 remaining per player when you plug in those two guys. So if you were to go like to Marc Gasol, that would leave you enough for Malcolm Brogdon. So that's like the clear build for me. That's probably my favorite build. If I were just playing one lineup on this showdown slate, that would probably be the build that I would go to. Or if you want, you can take Giannis out as your captain. You could probably put Kawhi in there. I think you'd have enough for that. Yeah, you could take Kawhi out, put Giannis in your captain. Either one works for me. I think both guys make great captain plays. But since Giannis will probably be maybe the lower-owned captain, I think he's the better play overall in my opinion. But really like doing that lineup build. That's probably one of my favorite builds. But let's look at maybe a couple other builds we could go to. Chris Middleton, like as a cheaper captain, I think makes some sense. Let's try and build out a lineup with Middleton as our captain. That would definitely leave us enough to get Giannis and Kawhi both in there together. We're going to need value, so we plug in George Hill, we plug in Norman Powell. That leaves you enough for Marc Gasol, so that's another build that you could look to do. Pretty much things just, if you plug in like Hill and Powell, that's going to give you enough to get all the studs that you want, whether it's Leonard and Giannis, whether it's like Middleton, Leonard, Giannis. You should have enough for all three guys, especially if you go with a cheaper captain like Middleton as your captain, or if you go with Siakam as your captain, you could still fit in Giannis and Kawhi with those guys because because Hill and Powell both give you a lot of salary, free up a lot of salary for value. If we're talking about cheap captains, some of these guys that we could roster down here that makes sense. There's not a ton of cheap value captains that I really like. Just don't know if the upside's really there for these guys. I expect most of my captain plays are going to be Kawhi, Giannis, maybe Middleton, maybe some Malcolm Brogdon as well with his price tag. Like if he goes for 40 plus DraftKings points again, he could definitely be a good captain play as long as like Kawhi or Giannis don't go for like 70. So let's build out a lineup real quick with Brogdon as our captain. That would definitely give us enough for Giannis and for Kawhi. We could probably get one of Siakam or Middleton in there as well. Let's plug in our two values with Hill and Powell. That'd leave us enough for Kyle Lowry, so we wouldn't have enough for Middleton or Siakam. But if you want to put Lowry in there, you could. Let's see if we take these guys out. We take out those two values. Maybe we go with some mid-range guys rather than going for the value plays. We could play like Gasol, Lopez, and then you could play Fred VanVleet if you want to. Or even playing like George Hill at 4K or Powell at 3,800 and leaving some salary on the table, you could definitely do that. Because most people that build out this lineup are probably just going to put VanVleet in there because he's the highest option available. But going down to a cheaper guy that could easily outscore VanVleet, like George Hill or like Norman Powell, I always love to do that in tournaments. So that's another build that you could look to do. But definitely my favorite build on the slate is going with Giannis as your captain, then putting in like Brogdon, Gasol, Hill, and Powell as value plays. That's the route that I'm going to be probably taking the most on this Showdown slate. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed the video, just make sure you click that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already, and if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, or you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. Feel free to message me on Twitter if you have any questions. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.